Hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining this webinar today. We're going to be talking about key considerations for selling online from the UK into the EU. This is a super important topic for e-commerce businesses when they're branching out into cross-border sales, especially when you're trying to stay VAT compliant. And so on this webinar, we're really hoping that will provide some clarity and practical steps to help you if that's where you're at right now. I'm really delighted that we're joined by Ruta from One Stop VAT. Ruta brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise in VAT compliance and international e-commerce. We're really excited to be able to have her on this webinar, and she's going to share some of her knowledge with us today. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Elspeth. I'm the UK go-to-market manager at A2X. I'll give you a really quick overview of A2X if you're not familiar. A2X is an accounting software that automates the reconciliation of sales fees, taxes from all the different e-commerce platforms like Amazon, Shopify, eBay, Etsy, all the big ones. And we send your data through to QuickBooks and Xero and Sage if you're in the UK, and also NetSuite. We simplify financial reporting. We give you organized transactional data to the right places on the P&L and the balance sheet. And we give you categorized summaries that match back to the amount that hit the bank. And we try and streamline the process and make it as easy as possible for you. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Ruta. Ruta, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and what you do at One Stop VAT.
Okay, so hello once again. So I'm Ruta. I'm currently, I guess it's almost 5 years that I'm at One Stop VAT. I'm the head of indirect taxes. One Stop VAT is the VAT compliance company that is helping e-commerce businesses to deal with all VAT, sales tax, and GST matters all over the world. So it means that if any seller has issues or questions about taxes, indirect taxes, so it means that these questions can be raised to One Stop VAT, and we can help you with that, starting from VAT consultancy, then VAT registrations, and of course the compliance.
Okay, all right. So in terms of an agenda for today, we're going to try and cover 6 main points, and then we're going to follow up with some Q&A at the end. 6 main points to cover are e-commerce. We're going to do just a general overview of distance sales of goods and electronically supplied services, ESS. Then we'll focus a little bit on specifically on distance sales of goods in the EU. Then we'll do a quick touch in on sales of ESS, because that may be impacting some of you if you're selling digital products. We'll talk about VAT registration and the reporting process in the EU. And we'll try and give you some first steps for selling online from the UK to the EU if that's where you're at and that's the direction you're going in as a business. And then right at the end, we'll just talk quickly about how One Stop VAT and A2X can help. So Ruta, first of all, maybe you can start by giving us a brief overview of distance sales of goods and services in the EU.
Yeah, sure. So I guess most of the online sellers have faced or somewhere met online the term distance sales, but maybe not always everybody understand what does it exactly mean. So in simple words, distance sales are the sales made by the seller without physical contact to the final customer. In most of the cases, distance sales are the sales made online via online shops or via marketplaces. Distance sales can be both types. It can be as physical products or as digital products as well. When I am using the term as digital goods or digital products, it means that we are talking about the sales of downloads of the pictures, documents, I'm sorry, videos, cloud-based software, or anything that is actually not touchable, but reachable, downloadable online.
That's a great overview of distance sales, Rita, especially for ESS or digital goods. What do online sellers need to know about selling physical goods from the UK to the EU?
Yep. So if we will focus and we will start talking about more about distance sales, about the sales from UK to European Union, especially. So the main thing that the business has to know is to know how they will move the stock or the products to the final customers. In some cases, businesses decide to import stock in bulk in one or another European country to store the goods there, and then to move the goods after the order is confirmed to the final customer. But in that situation, every business has to know that once actually before the stock is moved to European Union, the business has to be registered as a VAT payer in that country where the stock will be imported. Of course, besides VAT, the business has to get registered as with the EORI number. And what does it mean for the business? Without that number, once the products are imported into European Union, there will be no possibility to reclaim paid import VAT. And in some cases, it might be quite a significant amount of money. So to conclude, if the business will decide to hold stock in European Union, it means that the business has to be registered as VAT payer in that country where the stock is, and to be ready with EORI number if the goods will be imported from outside of European Union. Another type of business decides to just to do the sales directly from UK to the final customer in European Union. If we are talking about small products that value is not higher than 150 euros, so it means that the seller has to be registered in IOSS scheme in Europe and to apply appropriate VAT rate depending where the final customer resides. So it means to collect VAT before sending the goods to final customer. For the final customers, this approach is really appreciated because the customer knows exact value of the product and no extra charges will be paid to the customs once the product arrives to European Union. But of course, the main rule is that the value should not be higher than 150 euros. If the value is higher, so then it means it is the decision of the seller, whether the seller is the importer, whether the customer is the importer, and then has to deal with all the customs procedures in order to receive the product.
So you've mentioned the iOS registration. Can you talk about that a bit more?
So in general, talking about IOSS, we have to start talking about OSS. That is actually one-stop shop. This is how it should be named if we use the full naming of the scheme. This scheme is used by the sellers who are doing distance sales in European Union. This scheme actually helps the sellers to deal with VAT compliance all over the European Union with single registration. What does it mean? If we take an example, so let's say UK-based established company decides to hold stock in Germany. and from Germany to move all the products to the final customers in any European country. For the seller registers as regular VAT payer in Germany because the company holds stock in Germany. And then as well, they are doing the registration for OSS scheme in Germany as well. And then the company can just leave any thoughts that they have to be registered or have to deal with any country's VAT because OSS registration will cover everything. So it means if UK business will sell products to Spanish customers, the goods will be sent to Poland, to, I don't know, France, VAT should be collected according to the customer's country, but that will be reported in that single one return, OSS return, once in a quarter. So for the sellers, this OSS scheme truly simplifies all the matters when we talk about VAT. OSS, there are several OSS schemes. First one is a union OSS. That union OSS will be that one that I have just mentioned the example. If, let's say, UK established company stores goods in Germany and decides to deal with all the European VAT in simplified manner by using OSS, so that company will be registered for the union scheme. If, let's say, the UK-based business is doing sales of digital products, let's say UK business is doing sales of online games or videos, to European customers. So it means that that UK business can register for OSS scheme, but non-union scheme. Non-union scheme is used only for digital sellers to deal with VAT in European Union. And then the third scheme is import OSS. So this registration, this scheme will be applicable for the businesses who import low-value goods to the final customers in European Union. So low-value goods, it means the goods that value is not higher than 150 euros.
That's a great overview of One Stop Shop and the different schemes that are available. Thanks, Rita. At A2X, we work with online sellers who sell on Amazon, which is a marketplace, and also sellers who sell on Shopify, where they have their own online store. Could you tell us how VAT liability works for sellers who sell via a marketplace versus an online store?
Quite a lot of businesses are doing business via marketplace. So in this situation, when we talk about online business that are doing sales via marketplace into European Union, this mean of sales actually can be one of the solutions how to avoid dealing with all the VAT matters, because in several types of the sales, the seller will not be responsible for VAT, but the platform will be. So if we take this scenario, the same one, let's say UK established business is holding stock in Germany and is doing sales via Amazon or any other platform to the final customers in European Union. So it means that VAT liabilities goes to marketplace. It means that UK business does not have to deal with VAT on the sales that are made via marketplace. As well, if UK business will do sales via Amazon, and the goods are low-value goods, and they are shipped directly from UK to EU customers. As well, business do not need to deal with IOSS or any VAT scheme in Europe. Marketplace as well will take all the VAT liabilities. Totally different situation will be if the seller decides to do the sales directly via online shop. So it means actually all the liabilities then goes directly to the seller. If once again the seller decides to hold stock in European Union, in any country in European Union, it means that that business mandatorily have to be registered as VAT payer without any threshold. So it means that if I am UK business and I'm holding stock in Poland, in Germany, in Spain, in France. So it means that I have to be VAT registered in all these countries without any threshold. This is really important, as actually businesses quite often forgets that, or maybe online finds some information that one or another country has threshold, but for non-resident businesses in European Union, there will be no VAT registration threshold in such situations. As well, so if the sales are made in European Union from the countries where the stock is held, the seller has liability to collect VAT VAT rate of that country where the product will be sent. So it means that if the product is sent from Germany to Spain, so it means that such sale should be taxed with Spanish VAT. If the product is sent from France to Italy, so it means that such sale have to be charged with Italian VAT. And that is the liability of the seller to apply proper VAT rate and to remit that VAT to appropriate tax authority. As well, if the sales are made by an online shop by the seller directly from UK, and the product is a low value product and it is sent directly to the final customer as well, the seller has the liability to collect tax at the moment of sale, and the tax rate has to be applied according to where the product will be shipped in European Union. So if the seller from UK will send goods directly to Spain, so it means Spanish VAT has to be applied at the checkout. So in these situations, I guess all the sellers will find benefits if they will do sales via marketplace.
Thanks, Rita. So for sellers who sell on a marketplace, it sounds like Amazon or eBay, marketplaces like that, a lot of the VAT liability is taken on by the marketplace, but that doesn't mean that it's all taken care of. Maybe you could tell us, what are some things that marketplace sellers need to do to properly prepare for VAT?
So definitely, as I have mentioned actually several times already, but I am repeating that because from my experience, this is the most common mistake that businesses are doing. They are starting doing sales, importing goods into European Union without proper preparation. So once again, if the business will decide to move goods into European Union, the VAT registration will be mandatory at once before that stock is moved into European Union. As well, if the seller will decide to do sales via marketplace, such as Amazon, and will use FBA program. So it means that the stock will be held in 5 or 6 different European Union countries. So the business has to be prepared to have different 5 or 6 VAT regular registrations, and to prepare to deal with the compliance in each and every country. Another thing that business has to be prepared before doing sales via marketplace to perfectly understand what type of product the business is selling. Why it is important? Because the rates in European Union differs, despite the fact that in European Union we have VAT directive that actually regulates a bit how countries can set up VAT rates, but in each and every country, VAT rate differs for different type of products. So let's say if business will decide doing sales of baby clothes, so in one countries the VAT rate will be reduced rate, in another countries it will be applied standard rate. So you have to choose a proper product type and rate when you set up your online Amazon account. Also, when we talk about account setup, you have to provide to Amazon all exact details about your business and exact details about your VAT registration in European Union. Your VAT registration documents have to show the same company name, the same company address as you have on your company and corporation documents. If there will be at least differences in the wording, so what we know from the experience, so let's say if your business is named, I don't know, Ruta Ltd, but on German VAT certificate your business will be named as Ltd Ruta, it will be treated as not the same company, and your code will not be treated as valid, and you will be blocked from the sales in that market. So you have to be really careful how you are setting your account, what details you are providing to Amazon, because it will have impact how successfully you will start your sales, because the blocks are really frequent when we talk about sales in European Union if something is wrong with the setup. Why it is so? Because in European Union last year it was implemented DAX 7 directive, and marketplaces are responsible that all the marketplace sellers, merchants are VAT compliant. So that's why marketplaces are checking every details of the merchants. And as well as we have already talked, every business have to understand and to know the ruling. So it means that if the sales are made via marketplace, so VAT liability goes to marketplace. If we talk about the B2C sales, so it means the sales to final customers. But we all know that it might happen that one or another product can be bought by the business. So it means that if some business will order your product, you as a seller will be responsible to report such sale on your regular European VAT return. Amazon or any other platform will be dealing with only B2C sales made via marketplace. So I guess in that with that we can finalize about the sales via marketplace. I'm not sure, maybe Elspeth, you have something extra to add on that? No?
Yeah, we see so much of that now. So we see Amazon, a lot of the transactions will fall into marketplace facilitator tax, and we split those out for sellers so that they don't over remit their VAT. But there'll always be some, particularly if they're selling high value goods, there'll always be some, or they're just doing a UK VAT return separately. There'll always be some VAT that they're responsible for remitting. But it is super helpful. And we also find the settings in Shopify are really helpful for sellers because they do allow you to collect VAT at the arrival rate in the country you ship to, which again, if you want to sell cross-border with Shopify, is a really useful feature that they offer to sellers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a big one now, and it does help sellers because, you know, if the third party is going to take that burden off your hands, that's good. But you've just got to be aware that it isn't every case. As you're saying, there are situations where you're still responsible for remitting that EU VAT.
Yeah. Okay, so from the sales of the goods via marketplaces and online shops, maybe we can quickly jump to the sales of electronically supplied services. This is actually like maybe the smarter term of that digital sales of digital goods or digital products. So if you will try to Google something, so you can easily search about digital goods or products and you will find the same information, but in European Union, officially, in documents, you will find the term electronically supplied services. So
Good to
as
know
we
that. It's good for UK sellers to know that, because I really spotted that when you gave us that information, because we do call it something different. So that's really helpful.
yeah. Here, maybe the main thing what the business should know once they do sales of this type of products into European Union, that for non-European businesses as well, there will be no threshold. It means that from the first sale of your app application, I don't know, software to B2C customer in European Union, the business, the seller is liable to collect VAT according to the country where the customer resides. So it means that if UK business sells, I don't know, some kind of app, I don't know, maybe some dietary app to the customer in Spain. So it means that Spanish VAT has to be applied. And in these situations, actually, there will be only one case once the business do not need to charge VAT, European VAT, if the customer will provide you with valid VAT registration number in the country where that business is established. This is the only case when the seller can use zero VAT on the sales of digital goods. As well, just to mention, as we already talked about marketplaces, if you are doing sales of digital products into European Union via marketplace as well, marketplace is liable for the VAT as well, not the seller, but the marketplace. As well, let's quickly jump into the global situation. So not only in European Union, digital products are taxable, and in most of the cases, once the business are doing digital sales, they are doing it globally, in most of the cases without limitations. So keep in mind that not only European Union has these regulations that non-resident businesses have to be registered as VAT payer and to collect VAT where the customer resides, but currently it is 103 countries that already has implemented this type of law that VAT has to be collected if the business is doing sales of digital products to that country. And also keep in mind that each and every country's VAT registrations thresholds differ, and there are quite a lot of countries that do not have VAT registrations threshold. So keep in mind and be careful. Do not make a lot of sales, significant amount of sales to the countries, and if while you do not have VAT registration or you are not tracking the threshold. So I guess this is the main advice when we talk about the electronically supplied services.
Good advice.
Yep, and as we already started a bit, it will be relatable if we talk about sales of physical goods or if we talk about digital goods, about the registration process, how it goes. Actually, the businesses have to be prepared that registration processes really differs in each and every country. If we talk about European Union, and if the business has the liability to have standard VAT registration, it means that each and every country's requirement will be different. I guess everybody know that countries have different languages, so it means that your documents have to be translated into native language. There are several countries, maybe I can name Spain, that it is quite difficult to get registered, and you have to prepare a lot of documents. Not only translations would be needed, as well the documents have to be apostilled, notarized. And the registration usually takes around 2 months. And it is quite a lot of documents that will be needed for you in order to start VAT registration. In Germany as well, the country is quite popular to get registered in European Union because of the stock and of course the market. But registration process as well takes around 2 months.
And that's something you guys can help with, isn't it, Rita? You do that
Yes,
on behalf
yes,
of clients.
yes, definitely. Because for the business who actually have to focus how to make higher sales, to focus on the proper product, actually there is no time to prepare for the VAT registration, and I guess almost it is impossible to understand each and every country's law and regulation and the process how the registration goes, because not in every country the registration is digitalized. In one countries you can do it everything online, but in another countries you have to prepare paper forms, to sign them, to send them by post, and to wait response as well by post. You cannot call, you cannot email. So to deal with that, definitely One-Stop VAT can help in order for business to focus on their successful expansion into European Union. Of course, if there is no need to have the standard VAT registration, if the business needs IOSS or OSS registration, then the situation is totally different. The registration is truly simplified. No specific documents are required, and the registration does not take so long as standard registration. So OSS, it's not only simplified compliance, but as well a simplified registration process.
And it's quite a simple return as well. I've looked at one or two and they seem quite straightforward. Like I said, some in-house finance teams could do those themselves in some cases, but
yes, yes, for sure. And always, I don't know, maybe as well a tip for the businesses. If you decide to get registered in one or another country, because you can choose the country where you will be registered for OSS. So always, you can ask your service provider. I don't know if you will be dealing with One-Stop VAT or with any other company to do the registration in the country that you prefer, that you understand the language, and etc. Because it will be easier for you as well to understand what is named in on the return, or maybe to take over in-house all the compliance if in some cases it will be needed. It will be easier for you, let's say, to take over I don't know, Irish OSS returns if we in comparison of Italian one.
We do have quite a few opting for Republic of Ireland for their one-stop shop.
Yep. Yep. So actually, these are the main things. Just keep in mind that different registrations, different terms. And as we already discussed, so you have to be prepared and VAT registered before your sales into European Union. So keep in mind that it will take time to get registered. So you have to be prepared before your first sales into European Union.
Yeah, that's really good inside information on the process. Okay, so we wanted to make this really useful if this is you starting out for the first time on doing EU sales. So we've kind of compiled a checklist of all the steps that you'll want to take when branching out into the EU. So Ruta, I think you're going to walk us through this, and I think this is going to be really helpful for some of our listeners.
So it will be, I guess, like a summary of all the everything that I've already mentioned. So yeah, so I guess first of all, always, if there is no good product, there will be no sales. So of course, first of all, it is always the most important, the product that you're going to sell into European Union. And before doing the sales, you definitely have to do the research if there are any specific regulations in European Union, and then as well, depending on the type of your product, you can understand what VAT rate will be applicable for one or another product. Maybe that one product will be exempt in one country, maybe in another country it will be standard taxed with the standard rate. As well, standard rates differs quite significantly. Let's say in Denmark it is 27%, and in Luxembourg it is 17%. So every business has to know that because the setup of the accounting systems or the setup of the marketplace accounts, that information will be needed. Another step, definitely it is to decide how you will be doing the sales, whether the sales will be made via platforms such as Amazon, eBay, or any other one, or you will do the sales directly via your own online store. Why it is important? Because as we already talked, it means that if you are doing sales directly via your own shop, so it means that all the VAT tax, any tax liabilities will be on your business. You will be the one who is liable for the collection and the remittance of the collected VAT. And if you will decide to go to do sales via marketplace, so then quite a lot of VAT liabilities will be transferred to the marketplace. The next step, what is important to as well to decide whether your goods will be stored in European Union or not, or you will move goods directly from UK to European Union customers without the storage of the goods. Why it is important? Again, it is important because it depends whether you need standard registrations in European Union, or you can deal with a simplified OSS system in European Union. Also, the next thing is once you answer all the previous questions, you should already know that in one or another country, you definitely have VAT liabilities. If you, of course, cannot detect that, you can definitely contact OneStop VAT that can help you to understand where you have the liabilities, to deal with all the registrations, to go smoothly through that process, and to be compliant in any country that you need. And this is truly important, because if you will not be compliant and you will be doing sales via marketplace, so definitely your accounts will be suspended sooner or later. And it is quite difficult to unblock them if it is already blocked because of the request from the country, especially active is Germany. In the blocks of the marketplace accounts. Of course, anyways, despite the fact that you will do sales via your own store, you still have to be compliant, because countries are tracking the sellers, and I think that definitely none of the business prefers to be penalized. And of course, fifth step will be to properly prepare your online store or marketplace account with the proper VAT rates to properly set up the type of the products, the shipping country, and etc. It is truly important for successful sales into European Union. And last but not the least, definitely each and every business has to deal with proper accounting system. You have to prepare for that, to properly set up that. And with that, A2X definitely can help you. And maybe Elspeth can give more details on that point.
Yeah, I'd love to underline what you just said about getting it right in Shopify and Amazon and all these platforms that you're using. If you get it right in the source transactions, you'll be in a great place when it comes to actually filing your VAT return. Particularly if you're using A2X, if you set it up right in Shopify, get it collecting based on the EU country that you're shipping to, then A2X will automatically detect that and split out those transactions, and will split your EU VAT liability from your UK VAT liability, and you'll be all sorted. But it is a really important piece, that step number 5, is making sure your listings are all correct. I find that Amazon, I don't know if you find the same thing, Rita, but Amazon are really good at it. They have a lot of systems and checks and balances in place. But some of the other platforms, you've got to do a little bit more work on the seller side to get it right. Do you see that too, Rita?
Yes, of course, because we are receiving quite different type of reports. So definitely, let's say Amazon, if the account is set it up properly, and the seller has activated, let's say, a tax compliance tool, so the reports are really user-friendly, and you can find all the information about your sales, and all the sales are taxed properly according to all the rules and everything. Another platforms definitely do not have such user-friendly reports for the sellers and for the tax compliance companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to have just a quick touch on how A2X and One Stop VAT can help you in collaboration with each other. We do quite different things, so we'll touch on those, and then Ruth will just tell us a little bit more about One Stop VAT. But really quickly on the A2X side, we're all about accurate accounting. We're about getting the right information into your accounting system and doing it quickly, so it eliminates all of the manual processing time. The good news about A2X, I always find the relief when I talk to UK accountants and bookkeepers, is just that we have a whole suite of VAT functionality. We've been working back since, I think it was 2019, we introduced our VAT functionality, and we've been refining it through the years. We can split sales by taxable jurisdiction. Ruta talked a lot about marketplace tax, so that's where Amazon has been required to collect and remit the VAT on your behalf. We can separate that out for you. We often find that sellers are over-remitting VAT in some regions. Due to that, they're not accounting for that fact that Amazon has done some of the VAT for you. And so we'll split that out automatically. We can split sales by tax rate, different product types. We've talked about different rates for different products. That's all taken care of. And you can, if you wanted to, say you wanted to use One Stop VAT for your EU VAT returns, we could split all of your EU VAT from your UK VAT. You could continue as usual doing your UK MTD VAT return, but use the services of One Stop VAT to remit the EU returns. We're really focused on compliance in terms of the VAT. We give you journals that match back to the amount that hit the bank, feed through to your Making Tax digital tax return, but they also streamline your VAT returns and audits. So one of the great things I always like to tell people about A2X is the data goes into your accounting system, whether that's Xero or QuickBooks, and it's there. It's always there. So attached to every journal that we send is a raw data file that goes down to the order level. So should you ever have an investigation, you've got the data right there. You don't even have to go back to A2X. It's there where you need it, when you need it, ready. We do handle multi-marketplace and multi-currency. So you can sell across the whole of the world. You can sell on Amazon Saudi Arabia, Amazon North America, and the whole of the EU region. And we will be able to pull that data in and translate it all into sensible accounting data. We also give you breakdowns on fees. This has been a really big issue for Amazon sellers, particularly since they changed the rules on Amazon fees on the 1st of August last year. We'll split your fees out. So for example, Amazon, it's a really good case study, Amazon usually, because UK advertising has a different VAT rate to EU advertising, and we'll split that all out for you and automate the process so you don't have to spend lots of time scratching your head over it. And then, as I've mentioned before, we post these VAT inclusive entries through to Xero Sage, QuickBooks Online, and it's already there for you to remit your VAT returns, give the information to your third party to do the EU VAT returns. Just a quick overview of how it works, just because some people haven't seen this. When Amazon pays you or Shopify, you receive that one amount that hits your bank feed in Xero or QuickBooks, whichever you're using. You'll see it come through. We do see sellers that will automatically reconcile that whole number to sales. That isn't a correct reflection of the actual accounting data that's gone through that settlement. That number that hits your bank will be made up of many different transactions. It could be sales, shipping revenue, reserve balances are a big one. Oftentimes the marketplace is reserving a balance and carrying it forward, and you need to take account of that on your balance sheet. There'll also be multiple different types of fees, and there'll be the VAT or other sales tax that you then need to remit. And what we do is we break that all down for you into a journal or an invoice, depending on which accounting system you use. We take all the manual processing work out for you. You don't have to do an Excel spreadsheet, and it matches back exactly to the amount that hits the bank. So we're always looking for that green match on the bank feed. Job done, it's reconciled for that period. And then that automatically feeds through, if you use our standard settings, to your UK VAT return, and any EU VAT will be isolated on the balance sheet, ready for that to be remitted separately on one of these returns that Ruta has told us about. So that's how A2X can support you with your EU VAT and your UK VAT. But I'm going to hand back to Ruta now, and she's going to just tell us about some of the services One Stop VAT can give you to help with your EU VAT returns.
Yes, so as our company name as well says so, that we are focusing on the VAT. So currently One Stop VAT has a lot of expertise in VAT compliance, in submitting VAT returns in a lot of countries all over the world. So statistically, annually, we are submitting around 12,000 returns, not only in European Union, but globally. Our clients actually, we are expanding together with our clients. So if our clients needs VAT registrations in one or another country, so we are expanding with them together, so we can offer new countries that are needed for our clients. We are dealing with any size of the clients, starting from the really small ones that are not doing quite a lot of sales, and till the ones that are the unicorns and are doing sales of physical products or digital products, softwares, etc. As well, to be competitive in the market, we can deal, and we are offering our services for any type of business and any type of the data that our clients can provide to us. So as Elspeth as well already noticed and noted, and that Amazon, yeah, it's a simplified reports. It is maybe the easiest way to deal with VAT calculations, but as well we can deal with any type of the reports that our clients are providing to us. So we can be really flexible for any type of client. And the main services that we can offer is the VAT consulting part. So we can always discuss your situation, whether you have already started and you have already penalties or have received any letters from one or another authorities. So we can discuss on that, how you can handle it, how to deal with that, what process to choose, what steps to take. Always, if you are now only planning the expansion to European Union or to any other country, we can advise you what tax liabilities will be applicable for your company. And of course, if there is any need to do VAT, sales tax, or GST registration for your businesses, we can handle that. And of course, going forward to deal with all the VAT returns submissions, providing you with all the payment details. And helping you to be fully compliant in any country that is needed for your business.
That's brilliant. And that advice piece is so important as well, isn't it? That people can just come and ask a question when they have it. It's so helpful.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a few questions here. I think there's maybe one that I'll answer, and then there's a couple that would be great if you could answer, Ruta. So this is a good one. Just to clarify this point, actually, because I think you touched on this, but will it be enough to have a one-stop shop scheme registration, I'm assuming, in Europe to cover all EU VAT liabilities?
Yes, it is a really frequent question, and actually, no, it is not enough to have only one registration. Maybe it will be enough of IOSS, only in the cases once we talk about the import of low-value goods into European Union directly to the final customers. But in any other cases, it will be not enough to have OSS registration.
If you're storing goods in Germany, for example, you'd need a mixed approach to your VAT registrations, wouldn't you? Because a lot of people seem to store in Germany or Poland.
Yes, it will not be enough. And standard registrations will be needed as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. How about this one? How many different VAT service provider companies do I need to help me stay VAT compliant in Europe?
Yeah, so actually, it is I'm quite happy actually to say that it will be enough to deal with only one provider. Let's say if you some business will choose one-stop VAT, as our company is acting as a single point of contact. So it means that despite the fact what country, in which country you have VAT liabilities or needs to be compliant. So it means that you can contact and to deal with one assigned manager to your company, and you will be able to deal with all the cases all over the world. So it means that it is fully enough to have one service provider.
So if they had like a North America Shopify store or Amazon North America, you'd be taking care of that as well, rather than referring them on.
Yes, of course. Yes, it's despite the fact if it's the USA or it's Canada, doesn't matter.
Okay, it's good to know. Okay, so a couple of quick, these are questions we get quite a lot from A2X. So how does A2X handle multi-currency? So what we do is we always create our initial entries in the home currency. So say it's a Polish settlement, it'll be in Polish currency. And then we push it through to the accounting system, and each of the accounting systems have their own multi-currency feature. And then we use their multi-currency feature to convert it back to the amount that hit the bank. And we usually give you a prediction of what that conversion amount will be. So it works really well if you're a UK company and you're selling in North America, Canada, you know, all over the EU with different currency rates. As long as you're using multi-currency in your accounting system, it works well. And then there was another question also about A2X functionality. Does A2X sync data from all Amazon marketplaces? Yes, it does. We've even got some customers, as I mentioned earlier, Amazon Saudi Arabia, North America, Canada, Mexico, Brazil. We've got you covered with the Amazon marketplaces. I think this one's for you, Rita, if you can take one more, because I think this is actually a really good one, and kind of to sum up what we've talked about. And I think your insight and some of your stories might be helpful. From your experience, what are the most common VAT compliance mistakes UK sellers make when selling in the EU, and how can we avoid these pitfalls?
I guess the most common is that the businesses are starting importing goods in bulk to European Union without VAT registration, where the import will be cleared and without IORI number registration. So what does it mean to the business? They are losing the possibility to reclaim paid import VAT. Or in another country, so let's say in France, if the business will be already registered as VAT payer before the import of the goods, it means that there will be no need to pay import VAT at the moment of importation, as the VAT will be only reported on the VAT return. So it means that for business, they can, save their cash flow. So it is, for businesses, it is a really good thing, but this is something that the new ones who are expanding into European Union, they do not know about that and already made the imports. So it means that they have lost that part of import VAT. Another mistake.
The import VAT can be I've seen significant amounts in import VAT, especially.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, not doing VAT registration. Another mistake is not doing VAT registration once it is needed. So it means that it is not possible. Of course, definitely, these mistakes are with the platform sellers. The businesses are not ready to be registered in 5 different countries. The business decides to use Amazon FBA and to hold stock in each and every country that is in that program, and the businesses are not registered. They want already to do the sales. They have imported the goods, but the registration takes 2 months or 3 months, and they cannot start the sales. The stock is already there, and the sales cannot be started. And of course, another problem is not correct platform, the setup of the platform account. So it means sometimes the VAT is not collected if the sales are made not via marketplace, but via own online shop. Incorrect VAT rates are applied, or totally VAT is not collected, despite the fact that company can be registered in one or another country. So I guess these are the main problems and mistakes of the businesses that are starting their expansion into European Union.
Yeah, that makes sense. So definitely do your research before you branch out. Okay. All right. So if you do want to talk to One Stop VAT for some more help with your VAT returns in the EU and planning how you're going to branch out, please get in touch with them. You can email them at info@onestopvat.com, and they'll be really happy to talk to you. If you want to talk to A2X,
and just always it's possible to use our website and to fill any request form. So feel free to use any method that is proper for you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And with A2X, you can contact us in various ways. I'm on LinkedIn if you want to chat to me. I'm Elspeth Cordray, Elspeth@a2xaccounting.com, or you can talk to our main chat, which is 24/7 at contact@a2xaccounting.com. Check us out on the website, get a free trial, give it a go. So the last thing is just to say thank you, Ruta. It's been really helpful hearing you today and your perspective on this and what you can do to support businesses that are selling in the EU. So I just want to say a massive thank you for taking the time out and sharing your expertise with us.
Thanks a lot for the invitation and for the webinar. It was interesting for me as well.
Really, really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll work together a little bit more in the future this year. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for attending. Thank you for sending your questions, and have a great afternoon.